What's up, everyone? John Drake from Talking Into Infinity and the Nerfherder Council, and you are listening to Discography Discussion. Today we are going to dig deep into Mötley fucking Crüe.
You're listening to Discography Discussion, episode 237, Mötley Crüe, with John Drake of the Nerfherder Council.
I'd like to bring up the fact that Joe and Dan both have the same off-mic picture, and I want to know why that is. Joe thinks he's going to piss me off by putting a Purgle on the screen, but I'm not going to react. I'm not going to give him what he wants.
Hosted by Dan Terry.
It would have been better if Nikki Sixx had come to my house and poured sugar in my gas tank.
And Joseph Wren. Thank God he's in the Falcon. Presented by DiscussMetal.com. And if you shout at the devil from the gunner seat,
Oh, come on!
then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe. That is Dan. John Drake is here. Dude, we're talking about Mötley Crüe with this Nerfherder.
Yep, Mötley Crüe. Half of a good career, man. This should be interesting.
I think they were a little bit better than half. I liked more Mötley Crüe records than I didn't like, which is really weird to say, right? Because if you came to me a year ago and was like, hey, bro, you're going to be like so desperate for clicks at some point that you're going to start talking about bands like Mötley Crüe on your show. I would have been like, yeah, whatever, man. We're going to talk about like Suffocation, but we did that. We did that already.
And it was great.
Yeah, we already talked about Suffocation. Everybody was mad that we didn't talk about the EPs. But it is what it is. We're definitely not going to start talking about EPs now. And I just want to say, just right off the top of the show, that like I want to clear something up about EPs. Okay, if you have a band like Suffocation, amazing death metal band. If you're into death metal, you're going to love Suffocation. But there is no denying that band put out like 9 records that all sounded basically the same, which is great. If you're into that sound and every 2 years you want that sound again, then that band did everything that you wanted them to do. They're the ultimate unpleasable metal fan, band.
Ladies and gentlemen, unpleasable metal fan.
But whenever people say things like, oh, hey, you forgot to talk about such and such EP, or you forgot to talk about such and such demo, I didn't forget. Okay, I listened to this band for an entire week, sometimes a week and a half, 2 weeks. I listen to everything they put out, and here's something you guys don't know is I do actually listen to the EPs, and if I feel like there is something very notable to talk about, I will. So it's not that I forgot to talk about your favorite band's EP. It's because I listened to it, realized that the 4 songs or 6 songs on the EP didn't overall change my opinion of the band in any way, and I decided it wasn't notable, so I decided to leave it out of the episode.
Does Mötley Crüe have a surplus of EPs that I'm missing?
I mean, they have a demo, like a demo.
That's it?
I think so. Yeah.
I feel like this is more of a rant
like
than an
Crüe.
Actual discussion about Mötley Crüe at this point, Dan.
Well, I just want to clear it up because this is my time to shine to talk about this sort of thing. And it's not that I don't love EPs. And if you guys care enough about us talking about bands EPs, I was talking to Joe about this last night, and we are more than willing to go back and listen to bands we've talked about on the show's EPs and maybe do like mini episodes on those. But they're going to be on the Patreon, so you're gonna have to give us at least $1, in order to get access to that.
There you go.
But we will do it. I have no problem doing that. So and at the same time, I appreciate everybody's passion. Number one, I appreciate that there's people that listen to the show enough to get mad that we forgot to talk about X and Y thing. So we're willing to do that for you. But just let us know in our comments or emails, or if you want to slide into my DMs or whatever. Just let us know if that's something that you guys want.
So does that mean they'll have to go to Patreon to hear us talk about Quaternary today?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Definitely going to have to go to Patreon.
Suppose I should have listened to that one.
Dude, I've been listening to Dr. Feelgood for the past 15 minutes, so I'm good with whatever at this point.
Oh, man, I've been listening to Too Fast for Love.
It was funny about that record, man. Like I was telling Joe offline, Mötley Crüe's weird to me because it's one of those bands, like the first 5 records are just phenomenal, and after that it just like kind of falls off a cliff in a lot of respects. And I realized the other day that I had heard most of the songs on Too Fast for Love over the years and everything, but I realized I never listened to the whole thing front to back. in one sitting. I was like, holy crap,
Really?
how did I not? Yeah, I'm like, how did I not do that? And so I did it, and I was like, man, this is pretty cool, man. Like, it's, you know, it was interesting. I couldn't believe I'd never done that before, but yeah. So got me into the world of Too Fast for Love just to do this show.
I mean, Mary goes round and round, man. You know, like it's just.
Well, I was kind of listening to it with starry eyes, you know, just like, wow, this is really good. So, see, if you're gonna do a song pun, I'm gonna get one in myself. So there you go.
Yeah, no, fair enough. You got this. You know, let's take ourselves to the top here. You know,
Of course, John Drake is going to make a space pun.
Of course. And then I'll be public enemy number 1 if I do that. So,
well, Joe, is there anything you need me to read or get out of the way before we just jump into this this feast that has a weird diminishing returns effect?
I think now would be a good time for you to shout out our beloved patrons.
That's true. These are the people that, I mean, honestly, and I say this with no irony at all. These are the people that make it to where we didn't like that. They're the reason the show still exists. I think to some degree. I mean, how many episodes are we at? Like 230 something.
I did say 237 at the top of the show, dude.
Yeah, without these fine folks, we would not be here. And so I want to take the time out to shout them out. And that would include Lost Fiction, Kyle Driver, Timu Rantiao. Is it O? I did the best I could. Timu, if you're listening to this, we love you. Thank you for being a patron, and enjoy all of the different interpretations of your last name that I throw out every time we do this. Dangerous Dave, Ryan Rowe, Richard Renz, Big T, and Big T, we want to thank you especially for upping your Patreon pledge to the tier where you will get to hang out with us next month on the Patreon Hangout. So make sure you show up. It's going to be a great time. Josiah Heiberg, Brandon Miranda, Ken Zapla, Tantalized Fungans,
Best name ever.
Jeremy Prince, Josh Moser, David Brown, Samuel Woodward, Brian Dean, it's me, Brave, Lance Allagood,
The King of Metal,
Alexander, Patrick Asplund, and Jeffrey De Los Santos.
The actual Mac.
To quote Willy Wonka himself, you guys are the music makers and you are the dreamers of the dreams.
Look at that.
Thank you so much for contributing to our show. We really appreciate it. And we hope that you're enjoying the content. And if you guys ever have any questions, suggestions, anything like that, please never, ever, ever, ever hesitate to reach out to us and let us know what you want to see on the show.
Well, before John Drake jumps to hyperspace, I'm going to take this time to say thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, then you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We are on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. So if you have an Amazon Echo or a Google Home, you have no excuse. Ask it to play the latest episode of the Discography Discussion podcast, and it will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening. And now Dan is going to tell us all about 5-star reviews.
Hey, 5-star reviews, they're a good thing. That they inflate my already massive ego. And, so whenever you guys leave us a 5-star review, it makes me happy. It makes the other members of the podcast happy. Last week, we had a 5-star review from a guy that, said that our show is more fun to listen to than punching a sleeping baby. So I think that is, that's really all you guys need to know. But yeah, leave us a review. Supposedly it helps us with algorithms, but to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you guys what algorithms are thinking. The reason I've noticed that the show does as well as it does is that you guys that are either fans of the band or fans of the show are sharing these episodes whenever they post to your favorite social media groups, be that on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever other social medias that people use. We really appreciate it. People talk down on social media and how it's destroying our country and how it's destroying our planet and humanity at large. But we seem to be benefiting from it pretty well. So I appreciate all of you guys that are doing that. And, keep it up. There's no better feeling for me than whenever I go into a Facebook group and I make a post about a new episode that we posted and my post gets deleted because you guys have already shared it. It's an amazing problem to have. So I really appreciate you guys doing that, and keep it up.
John Drake, what's going on the Nerfherder Council?
Well, we, you guys are at 230 episodes. We've got man, we're getting up there as well. So we'll actually be live this coming Wednesday at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are going to have a guest host with us. It's going to be Chris Mocked from Mocktails at the Cantina.
Nice.
So he'll be coming on. I actually was just on with him live a couple weeks ago on his show, and we're going to talk about the 15th anniversary of his really, really incredible Star Wars documentary, The Force Among Us. So we're going to be digging into that. But also, AJ has decided that we need to be school teachers on this episode, and we are going to grade several aspects of the sequel trilogy. So
Ooh.
A, B, C, D, E, F. I can provide one teaser for the show. I can pretty much guarantee everybody that Carrie Poppins will be getting a resounding F from pretty much all of us on the show. So,
Oh no.
yeah. Are you serious? Well, see you later.
That's what I think
All right.
about that, John.
All right, where's that delete myself button? Damn it.
You'll never get access to it.
He's gone. He's gone.
He gone. So, yeah, but Nerfherder Council's going strong, man. It's fun. Me and my brother AJ and my buddy Steve, we do it every other Wednesday at, like I said, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's live on our Facebook and YouTube pages. You can find the audio version pretty much anywhere where you get your podcasts. So if you're into Star Wars, and it's not a typical Star Wars discussion, it gets pretty ridiculous, Joe, as you're aware. We always invite people to be a part of the discussion. So
I'm
we
still
bring things
waiting for
up on
that
the screen.
host call, John.
Oh, dude. Well, you got to
gotta
tell me
stop
what you want to talk
trolling
about.
the
Yeah. Actually, chat trolls usually go to the top of the list for guest hosts. So.
Well, I've actually gotten onto a pretty big Star Wars kick again recently. I was kind of out of it. After episode 9 came out, I went and saw it, and then I was kind of like, didn't really think about Star Wars anymore because I was like, well, the newest movies come out, so there's not going to be, a whole lot really to dig into after that. And for whatever reason, I got really into Audible. So, thank you guys very much for that.
No
and
problem.
I signed up for an Audible account. I got a free book. And
Yep.
I decided to listen to the Thrawn trilogy again because that's like my favorite Star Wars series. It's not canon now, but it's actually, if you listen to those books, they do a surprisingly good job of like it could still technically be canon. It could fit in with what the
agree.
modern canon is, because it takes place 5 years after Return of the Jedi, so it doesn't interfere really at all with the other books. Or the other movies. But then I went back and I listened to, there was a Thrawn trilogy because they brought Thrawn into the Rebels TV show.
Yep.
And so there's a whole trilogy of audiobooks that take place during that. And there was one that I just want to shout out real quick, and we'll get to talking about Mötley Crüe eventually. I'm sorry. But there's one where it was called Thrawn Alliances.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of it,
second one.
Palpatine, so Palpatine sends Thrawn and Vader out on a mission into the unknown regions. And there's just so much amazing stuff that happens in that book. There's a point in that book where like Thrawn uses Vader's use of the Force to navigate through the unknown regions in hyperspace.
Yep.
which was incredible. And just the back and forth between Thrawn and Vader was really, really, really good. And I don't know. That was like absolutely fan service for me. I
Yep.
loved it. And that book was absolutely incredible. The one that came before it and after were really good too. And so now I'm starting the Ascendancy books, which are basically about like young Thrawn.
Yep.
I can't say anything about those yet. I haven't really gotten too deep into them. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. So anytime you guys want to talk about Thrawn, you just let me know.
Could do that, man. Like I've listened to the first book. I listened to the second one, like you're talking about. That's actually the one where they kind of like when they announced Galaxy's Edge. That's where they first really brought Batu into the picture.
Yeah,
it was in that second Thrawn book. So, and the cool thing about that one that I liked is it's like a throwback book because there's also all the, the Anakin, Padme stuff in there too. So it kind of jumps to like from present time to like, goes back in the past and everything. So it's a really interesting point of view the way that they did that book and everything. I haven't gotten into the ones after that yet. I mean, admittedly, some of the books get a little long-winded for me.
Sure.
So it's a little like Steve doesn't listen to any of it. He basically watches the movies and that's it. He's seen Rebels, and that's pretty much where we tried watching Resistance. We weren't big fans of that. It's more for kids, so it's we're not the target audience, whatever.
Sure.
But you got the Bad Batch right now. If you haven't watched that, it's phenomenal. That one surprised me because I like the Clone Wars, but I've never gotten through it all the way. It's not that I disliked it, it just didn't grab me enough to keep going with it. But I was like, I better check out, the Bad Batch because it came out. Man, it is fantastic. That is a great show. So I would highly recommend that one. So that's kind of what we're into. And like I say, AJ's on a sequel trilogy kick lately. So he wants to kind of dig into that. And we catch a lot of crap for The Last Jedi because we all really like that. So there's a bunch of people that are like, you guys are high, that movie sucks. And it's
actually my favorite out of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, mine by far. And I really like The Rise of Skywalker, and I'm, rehashing an old point again. Like I said, we'll get to Mötley Crüe because no one gives a shit about Star Wars.
Yeah, everybody's like, why are these nerds? One of these guys is wearing a Nintendo 64 t-shirt and they're talking about like Star Wars. Like what is going on there?
Just tell us when to show up, John, and we'll continue that conversation.
Hey, dude, we'll do it. We'll do it, man. It's Episode 7 to me is just an Episode 4 ripoff. It's a fun movie. It has the greatest Millennium Falcon scene ever in the Graveyard of Giants, but it's
that hunk of junk is not going to stay together. Love that. Yeah. Imagine how junky it was by then.
I know, and it hadn't flown in forever, like that. Last point, and then we'll move on. But that was as a kid, I saw the original trilogy in the theaters, and so obviously when I was older, I saw the prequels in the theaters. And man, when they brought back the Millennium Falcon in Episode 7, I had that little kid moment when the hunk of junk will do, and they show the Falcon. I was like, oh, like it was such a cool way to bring it back. And so
you're like, you're damn right, it'll do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was. I really was. I really was, man. And it was, and then the Falcon's just flying around kicking ass. It was so great, And I heard some guy walking out of the theater like, man, that was kind of like it was just sitting there, like it would, like they didn't have to make it do that. That's not really real. And I wanted to be like, you know what, dude, up your ass. It's the goddamn Millennium Falcon. Shut up, you disrespectful prick. Fuck you.
Right.
But now, how did it end up in that junkyard? You get to make a show about that.
Guys,
exactly.
We gotta talk about Mötley Crüe.
I don't know what happens between something like Episode 6 and 7. I'm gonna leave that to your show for speculation, John.
Yes,
we gotta talk about Mötley Crüe.
So Dan, get us on topic. Tell me about Mötley Crüe.
Man, Mötley Crüe. Okay, so Mötley Crüe.
You're welcome, by the way.
Yeah, well, Mötley Crüe is an American heavy metal band. They're from LA because, honestly, do I even really need to tell you that they're from LA? Just so much glam, so much party life. I've never really been to LA, so it's probably, I'm just guessing here.
I've been once.
Was it everything that you imagined it would be?
Well, I will say this. I purposely went to the Sunset Strip because, Van Halen is my favorite band, and I wanted to see all the clubs where these bands were from. Everything is smaller and more self-contained than you would think it is.
Sure. Yeah.
It was, because you read all these books and stuff. Like since we're talking about Mötley Crüe, I've read The Dirt at least like 30 times. It's one of my all-time favorite books. And, all these bands talk about, we sold out the whiskey for 3 nights. And you're thinking, holy crap, and I get to the whiskey. If you put 200 people in there, it's assholes to elbows. I'm like, how is that impressive to sell out a 200 seat?
You're like, I was in a local band once. Like, I get it. Yeah.
I sold out 1,000-seater. And I'm like, so I'm expecting the whiskey to be this big thing. And I'm like, it's tiny. And I'm like, wow. But also, again, because it was so self-contained and things are closer together than you would think they were, you could picture back in the day when they're saying, there's, people hanging from trees and all this people on the streets and on the sidewalk. It's like you picture it and it's like you could see how that would happen. And it's just, you kind of think like, man, that must have been kick ass to hang out in that environment on like a Friday, Saturday night and just, all the different bands that you have going on at the different clubs and, getting into Mötley Crüe. Like they basically kind of started that scene.
Well, yeah.
And that becomes very evident as you go through the discography.
Yeah.
How many times do you hear something someone else very clearly stole and Mötley Crüe was getting credit, but did they have drama along the way? A little bit. I remember when Mötley Crüe came back and that was a big deal and I didn't get it. I knew the singles, but I didn't get how much of a big deal it was. But that scene, that late 80s, early 90s, thrash and heavy metal are popular now. Yeah, Metallica put out the Black Album, but thank Bob Rock and whatever the fuck he did with Mötley Crüe 3 years before that, right?
Yeah,
well, we'll get there. But yeah, like, I mean, with a band going all the way back to 1981, in that scene, playing, and this is my favorite kind of era to talk about Mötley Crüe, because I think we've all kind of been through like what their mindset was kind of at that time, which was we just want to make heavy metal music. We want to make music that like people are going to be like offended by when they hear it, but then like all the young people are going to come out for it, and we're going to have awesome parties. We're going to have like just a really, really, really great time. And even starting out back then, I think it was more like, because you got to think like back then, they're just like, dude, it'd be really cool if we were able to like play a show and like sell out the whiskey. You know what I'm talking about?
We could eat like for the entire week if we do that.
Dude, if we do a good job, they might like give us free drinks. Like, I mean, who knows? I'm not saying that they will, but maybe they won't. Maybe they will. And so whenever we roll into their first album, Too Fast for Love,
1981.
I think that is really kind of self-evident, because like when I listen to this record, like it starts off with the song Live Wire, which to be honest with you, I was actually a little surprised at how catchy it already is.
Yeah.
For a band's first record, like, because like we talked about Diamond Head a while back, and we were talking about how like their original album was like super, super rough. Even Iron Maiden's first album was kind of rough, starting out. And and even Def Leppard, we kind of had the same sort of situation with them, where it's like these guys were all very obviously influenced by like the kind of like British kind of heavy metal scene, and you hear that the most kind of here on this first Mötley Crüe record, where the riffs are just alive. The songs are really, really, really catchy, because heavy metal had evolved, quite a bit, between whenever Black Sabbath put out their first record, which I think is like, 69, 70, so like within the 10 or 11 years. So heavy metal had evolved into being something that was like really off-putting, I feel like, to a lot of people, into something that was actually like really catchy and singable, but this is still not like pop metal. This is still there's so much care being put into the riffs and into the vocal melodies, and not really even melodies. Like I don't feel like Vince Neil was like as good of a singer as he would become, on this record. But I like kind of the youthful energy that's on this record.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that the drumming is like really the drumming is actually fantastic on this record, and that's something that really stood out to me right away. It's shocking to me that like for a band that I just kind of put in the back of my mind as a hair band and never really thought about beyond like actually going back and listening to their records, I was kind of like, man, these guys actually were like they kind of came out of the gate swinging as far as like being aggressive and catching attention, which I think is probably why they were signed as quickly as they were, and got kind of put on that upper echelon of like bands from LA at the time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the drumming, because that's something that I really noticed, is that, I mean, from a musician's standpoint, when you listen to Too Fast for Love, I think the two things that anchor the album are, the hooks vocally and definitely the drumming, because, you mentioned the riffs, but if you really listen to them, and we play, all of us, play somewhat. Yeah. We're not obviously professionals, but, if you really actually kind of break down some of the riffs, they're pretty juvenile in a lot of spots. And I think if this record was left to be driven by solely the riffs, I don't think it would have been nearly as impactful as it was. Because again, they're kind of, you could tell it's like, a 22-year-old, 21-year-old Nikki Sixx who hadn't really been writing songs very much. But then you've got Tommy Lee's drumming, which is, it's musical drumming. It's aggressive, and, it's very, it's like you said, it's heavy metal, but it does kind of have that like rock and almost like a pop vibe to it in spots. He's got the cool things that he does. He became known for the choking the crash and without like a backbeat on the, the kick and stuff like that. And, the hooks vocally, because I mean, the lyrics, I mean, let's be honest, Nikki Sixx is not a great lyricist, but
yeah, I mean, they're trash. I think most of Mötley Crüe's lyrics are trash.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And I never really paid attention to it too much, because it's Mötley Crüe. You listen to it, for fun. It's a fun band to listen to. And when you really start trying to dig into it, like we're doing now, like I started trying to actually like, analyze Mötley Crüe. I'm like, man, Nikki Sixx is kind of a crap lyricist.
Yeah.
But the vocal melodies there, especially for such a young band, especially for doing something that was new and hadn't been done before at that time. You know, when you have, you know, those vocal melodies and that drumming, it really drives the record forward. And, you know, I mean, they come, like you said, they come out of the gate swinging, and to open the record with Livewire, which I think it's still my favorite Mötley Crüe song, the first thing they ever released. I mean, you've got, you know, Tommy Lee, it comes up with the double bass, you know, and it's that heavy riff, and you're like, you know, I mean, I kind of thought about it, like if you're a kid in 1981, and you know Van Halen had kind of started changing the thing, and you know the new wave of British heavy metal started coming out, but when you get that as a kid and you're in LA, and all of a sudden you got this band that looks like a bunch of Satanists, and they come out, and the first thing you hear is freaking Livewire, you're like, holy shit, like that's pretty mind-blowing crap back then, I think.
It feels like the goal was to be big. Clearly, This band listens to Van Halen, Motörhead, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden. They have all of those early 80s heavy metal sounds, but this is the first time it was an American band that you really paid attention to playing this style. Because this is very clearly not Van Halen. It's clearly not AC/DC. It's not those other bands that you've been listening to for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
But how much of the 80s sounds like this?
Yeah. Well, and even this record from Mötley Crüe, if you kind of really think about it, this is the only record they kind of sounded like this, because it got into a different direction that they kind of really leaned on, especially for the following 4 albums. You know, this one has more of a punk feel to it, and it does, you know, you can hear, you know, I mean, Nikki Sixx has, you know, always said like Cheap Trick and The Sweet and all these, you know, kind of like poppy type of bands. You can hear that influence. There's a whole bunch of clapping in the, you know, in choruses and stuff like that, you know, the cowbells clanking away. And, but I mean, even, you know, you get into just the next record, Shout at the Devil, and it doesn't have that happy, punky, poppy thing to it. They kind of get into their own little groove, and it's a little bit darker. So,
well, yeah. And I think what makes this first record, Too Fast for Love, like more relatable. I think it's the most relatable, I think, to the average person Mötley Crüe record, because everything else they do after this is so like soaked in excess that most of us are not going to ever experience, nor do we probably want to, you know, like it's one of those like things. And it's like, because, you know, we've all been in the garage, we've all been like picking our favorite aspects of all of our favorite bands and trying to write songs based on that. And I feel like that's what makes us the most relatable Mötley Crüe record, because it's so where we've all been, you know, as far as trying to make, you know, some sort of impact. Like the riffing can be kind of pedestrian, but at the same time, because it's borrowed from so many other bands, it comes across sounding more familiar.
Yeah.
In a good way, like in a nostalgic way. So it's really interesting to see how they do, you know, just a couple of years later with Shout at the Devil.
Yeah.
1983.
Yep. It's this record, man. It's, to me, this record kind of like, when I think about the 80s and I think about, you know, hair metal, glam, whatever, this is the record that comes to mind. I remember as a kid, you know, I discovered rock music when I was 8 years old in 1984. And, you know, I found the Van Halen 1984 record, whole nother story. But, you know, my older brother's 9 years older than me. So when I'm, you know, in 1984, I'm 8 years old, he's 17. So he's right in that wheelhouse for that 80s, you know, glam stuff. And I went up in his room, I found out he had all these tapes that were like Van Halen, and Shout at the Devil was the first one that I saw. And I'm a little kid, and I'm seeing that album cover with these guys in this makeup and, you know, fire behind the one guy. I'm like, and it was like scary in a way for a kid, but it also like, I felt like the coolest kid on the block, because I'm like, oh, I'm listening to this and it looks like something I'm not supposed to listen to. And, you know, it starts out with, you know, In the Beginning, which is like still the coolest freaking opening track ever. It's like, I was really sure when I put that on. I'm like, oh my God, like he's talking about the devil and this thing sounds evil. And I'm like, I'm not supposed to listen to this. And then Shout at the Devil comes on and Looks That Kill and Bastard. I was like, oh my God, like it blew my mind. And to this day, the record, it sounds fresh. It feels fresh. I think it's the one thing that they've done that, I hate using the term timeless because it's such a cheesy term, but, you know, some of their stuff can be dated and you're like, okay, well, it's gotten kind of like, but Shout at the Devil to me still sounds like it just doesn't age. It's just absolutely freaking great. from start to finish. And it is absolutely their it's stupid to say that their pinnacle came with their second record, but it's just fantastic. It's like a perfect album.
Too Fast for Love was the blueprint. It was the structure that the band would build off of. It is not that much of a stretch. Someone, whether it was the band or the producer, the manager, whoever made the decision when this album came out, they took that piece of the puzzle that was there and they mixed it with Kiss.
Yeah.
I have said many times, we talked about it with Def Leppard. Def Leppard was the sound of the pop rock in the 80s, but I think Mötley Crüe was the first attempt to come up with the new Kiss. Because what happened shortly after that? Kiss took their makeup off. They tried to reinvent and stay relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, like the pop metal. The idea of like, how do we make music that would usually piss everyone's parents off and cause them to burn the records, or the tapes or whatever. How do we take that but make it so irresistible for kids to listen to that, and so like there's a level of genius kind of there that I think that a lot of people can't get. So like the difference between like something like Shout at the Devil, where like we talked about Iron Maiden a few weeks ago and we talked about like The Number of the Beast and how everybody thought that album was satanic or whatever, and the band went through like great lengths to be like, it's not satanic. It's about a bad dream that somebody had, and all our music is about literature. And they tried to go for the defense of it. And Mötley Crüe came at it from a totally different angle where they were all like, I don't know, man. Is it about the devil?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it'd just be one of those. Yeah. And so like it's the smartest thing to do because I remember thinking of Iron Maiden as being like, oh yeah, these guys are fine, but they're like never gonna like piss my dad off, like my dad's gonna hear Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner and he's gonna love it. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing.
Phenomenal song, by the way.
Yeah, oh, so good. But like the thing is that like this record, like God bless the children of the beast in the beginning, like the way and to put a cover of Helter Skelter on there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just like they were trying to piss people off. And like it's the same sort of it's the same sort of tactic that like bands like Limp Bizkit would use like later in the 2000s. You know what I mean? To like just really like put something out that's gonna upset everybody, but like everybody's gonna listen to it anyway. But yeah. I would say the biggest thing is that like this was still very musically good because you still have the same band that put the last record out that you loved. Although I have to admit, Shout of the Devil was probably the first album I think a lot of people heard from Mötley Crüe, like in the audience at large. And so to have songs like Bastard, Helter Skelter, like
Looks That Kill.
Looks That Kill. Yeah. I mean, it just, and obviously Shout at the Devil being, I can't deny the 89 million streams on Spotify, right? Like, I mean, it's just, it doesn't even matter if I hate the song or don't hate the song. Like it's been streamed 89 million times. So whatever I'm going to say is null, but like, it's absolutely a banger of an album for that year because it's just heavy enough. Like, sure, it's in 1983, right? So like dudes like me in 1983 are going to be all like, there's this band called Metallica and they just released this No Life to a Leather demo and it's way heavier than all the stuff you guys are listening to. But like as far as the commercial vein, Mötley Crüe was about as like offensive and adult, quote unquote adult, which by adult I mean like all the kids tried to find it.
Yeah.
After the fact, this was just number one. It's a very musically amazing record, as well as being the result of marketing genius.
Yep. And I think one of the things that always stands out to me about it, and I don't know how many other bands you guys would say this about, but when you think of Mötley Crüe, this is what you think of. Like musically and image-wise, you're not thinking about the Dr. Feelgood era. You're not thinking about girls. Like you remember that, but when you say Mötley Crüe, this is what you think about. Even bands like Metallica, you kind of picture like the early era, but that's like a 10-year period of that's you picture older Metallica and stuff like that, but it's like it's over 5-6 records, whatever. Megadeth stuff, like it's the same thing. Like you don't think about, oh man, like Peace Sells eras. That's my Megadeth. Like it's kind of the same, but Mötley Crüe has this ungodly definitive version of themselves that is from this album. And no matter what they did afterwards, when you say the words Mötley Crüe, this is what you think of. My background right now, that is, the their band photos from the Shout at the Devil record. It's like that's what people think about as Mötley Crüe. And the songs on the album and the attitude of those songs and everything, that's what you think about when you think about Mötley Crüe.
Oh, yeah. You don't think of them as like washed up old school rockers from the 80s. You know, like when Mötley Crüe, for whatever reason, when you use the name, it evokes this era of the band.
Yeah.
Like almost immediately. Like, do you remember whenever Mötley Crüe was the band that like your parents told you shouldn't listen to them? Yeah. And, there were all these,
Remember when your dad said you can't go to that show?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
keep in mind, too, that like this was also like, and I like to add a little bit of a historical context to this. This was like right in the midst of the satanic panic that took place in America, where like people thought that like small town churches were actually like satanic cults, and then there were all these Satanists that were like sacrificing babies to Satan or whatever. And then you've got Mötley Crüe, on the West Coast, that's just like, yeah, man, like shout at the devil, yeah, worship Stan, right? Yeah, exactly. Like there's like all this like shout at the devil, and they start heavily using like the upside down star, the pentagram, kind of very prominently in their stuff, because they know that like that's what makes the album sales. For every parent that says, oh, this is terrible, this needs to be banned, there's going to be 10 kids that like save up as much money as they can in like a jar in their room so they can go and buy this record, like it's
and rebuy it after the record gets burned by mom and dad.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got to have that backup copy. I went through that in the 90s. Yeah.
Well, it's like I said, man, like when I discovered this record when I was 8 years old, it had been out for a year. Like I felt like I was doing something dangerous. Like I felt like I was the cool kid. Like I was always petrified. My dad would find me listening to this because, first of all, my dad didn't like rock anyway, so I tried to hide that from him for as long as I possibly could. Anything I was listening to that wasn't, because he's only into classical. And when I listened to this, like I would go to school and the kids in my class are listening to Madonna and all this other stuff, and I'm sitting there drawing pentagrams on my book covers and crap, I'm not even 10 years old, and it's like I felt like the biggest badass because I'm listening to Mötley Crüe, and there's fire and pentagrams, and these guys are wearing this makeup and stuff, and I'm listening to stuff in the beginning, God, all men's sins, and it's like, whoa. So your point is dead on, man. It's like the marketing for this was incredibly spot on, and it generated album sales like crazy. It was kind of like the blueprint for, as the 80s would go on, people kind of, I think this was like the first time you could look at a record and really say, that a band did what you're talking about, which is the image and the imagery, to really be like, you don't know what the music is, but that this looks so badass that you have to buy it. And this was kind of like, the blueprint for stuff that would come after.
Does anybody else think it's weird that Stryper formed in 1983?
They were the answer to Mötley Crüe. We can't let this happen.
That, like Stryper's one of the like. It's funny with Stryper because like everybody gives them crap for being like a Christian band or whatever, but like they mainly did they did extremely well by using the exact same imagery and themes.
Yep.
Like as what you find with Shout at the Devil. Instead of Shout at the Devil, it was To Hell with the Devil, or like all this stuff. But like it is interesting seeing how like there's ripples kind of what Mötley Crüe did that would make other bands successful as well.
Yep.
Even if they were coming at it from a totally different angle. But yeah, that record absolutely just kind of blew my mind listening to it all these years later.
Yep.
Was that number one, it still sounds like fresh. It still sounds cool to listen to. And I feel a little bit like, because even I was at work, right? And I'm like listening to this, on my 10-hour shift or whatever. I'm listening and my friends are like walking around or whatever. And I've got my headphones on, and I'm like that guy in the meme that's all like, "These guys have no idea that I'm listening to some pretty serious rock music right now." You know what I mean? Like they don't know how evil what I'm listening to is. Getting that feeling. It's the same feeling that it would be like heavily exploited later on with bands like Slayer and Venom and stuff.
Yep.
But this is the kind of the beginning of all that, and it might seem very like tiptoe ease into the pool type of stuff, but you have to understand how upset and offended people were by this, but also like entranced by it.
Yeah,
and that's how the band is able to kind of move on to something like Theater of Pain afterwards, kind of with that image already intact.
1985, Theater of Pain.
Entertainment or death.
I'll have the chicken.
Oh man. Yeah,
So- this one's a little rough. It's not. I don't want to say it's bad because it's still like a classic Motley Crue record. I'd be lying if I didn't say I've heard their cover of "Smoking in the Boys' Room" at least 400 times in my lifetime because I've had to listen to that. It's just that you look at the cover and you've got theater masks. You've got one crying blood. He's got a pentagram on his forehead. And so I was like, okay, is this it? Like, are we fully on with are we down with the GOAT now? Like, is this Motley Crue now? Like, as we know them? And the record that you ended up getting is a record that's not really quite as heavy as Shout at the Devil. It is at times. There was a song, I think it was might have been Use It or Lose It, that I felt like was very metal, kind of, but it also like. The problem with these songs is that they kind of just meander on.
Yeah,
and there doesn't seem to be as much like thought put towards the actual composition of the songs.
My theory is they were so trashed during the Shout at the Devil tour. This was the best they could do at the last minute, and it just wasn't as good as that album.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, Nicky himself has said that this is when he really started sliding into that heroin addiction. And, Vince Neil had the car accident, that killed the Hanoi Rocks guy. And, he was sober-ish, for this album. And he's been very open about saying that he felt like he was the only one when they would play this stuff live that is like half of this stuff is just pure shit. Like, and I think that's a good description of the record. It's, like the songs that are good on the record are really good. There's some really cool Motley Crue tunes, and the rest is just filler trash. Most of the second side is just ugh. But I mean, you have some great stuff. Obviously, Home Sweet Home is a classic. Smoking in the Boys' Room, City Boy Blues is great. Tonight is really cool. That's kind of heavy. It's like that halftime. Kind of like it's got like a heavy groove to it. But then you get, like you said, you're talking about Use It or Lose It, and like Raise Our Soul to whatever the hell. Half of that record is just ugh. And you could hear the drug influence starting to come into the songwriting. He got a few good songs out, and then the rest was just up in a heroin needle somewhere. So,
yeah, like the drugs don't affect them in a good way, like the Beatles. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those, like, the music doesn't suddenly become way cooler, over time. And I think really what this is this is something we talk about a lot on this show, is that like there comes a certain point where like you've got your first album and it's like we're gonna write these cool riffs and we're gonna piss people off and we're gonna yada yada yada. That's the mindset going into making your first record. And then now you're an established thing. You've become probably one of the biggest bands in the world kind of at that point. And now you're just clocking in. You're clocking in to do the Motley Crue thing, but like really what you want to do is like do heroin and party and drink and all this stuff. So like you show up for work, you do the bare minimum amount. Like these guys probably wouldn't have survived, a yearly, like an annual review, like the rest of us are subjected to, after doing our job for 6 months or whatever. And so they put out Theater of Pain, and they did what they said they were going to do. They were going to put a new record out. But it's so funny that this early in the career, and it's kind of like a case study in what popularity and kind of the hedonistic lifestyle in the 80s was like for bands, where we're already starting to see the cracks on album 3.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I mean, there's some songs that are like exactly what I wanted, from a new Motley Crue album. But then some of them are just like, yeah, okay, guys, we went on for, okay, all right, 3 minutes. That's good, right? We can just cut here.
Yeah.
And it's so obvious, and it doesn't get better anytime soon, guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, it kind of feels like he wrote like 5 or 6 tunes and was like, all right, sweet. And then the label guy's like, you need 10 for a record. Ah, shit. Like,
if we put on an EP, they won't talk about it on a discography discussion.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think this one, and you could accuse girls of this as well. I don't agree with that. Like we'll get into that in a second, but with this one, and maybe girls, it's like if you don't have those 2 banger hits, they're done, because the rest of it it's not that good. Even though there's some cool songs on it, if you don't have Home Sweet Home and Smoking in the Boys' Room, if you take those 2 songs off the record, you're kind of like,
Yeah. You go back and listen to Shout at the Devil now.
Yeah, exactly. Shout of the Devil is like, it's just a solid record front to back, and this is kind of like, ugh.
Yeah, I didn't skip any songs on that one. You know what I mean? It was just one of those like, yeah, great, keep the awesome going. This record, you kind of have to skip around to find something that you like, and make sure you're skipping around between like tracks 1 and 5. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
There are 3 heavy metal trends that the 80s, I'm not going to say popularized, but they made essential. That was, the first song is supposed to knock you out of the park. The second song is supposed to be your follow-up single. So you have a cover of Smoking in the Boys' Room. That's awesome. Yep. Oh, did I mention the heavy metal trope of play at least one cover song on your album? Then we get to Home Sweet Home. I've heard it said this is the song that started the heavy metal ballad trend that would not stop for 10 years. John, I got to lean on you a little bit. Is that true?
Okay. I would completely agree with that. I mean, you can't really think about any other band that did it before. I mean, Mötley Crüe did start the glam thing. So first of all, they were like that first real 80s band you think of, and they were really the first one to do this. I mean, if you pull up MTV videos, on YouTube, and you go through and you'll see like, Whitesnake, Whitesnake, and Dokken, and like you said, like Def Leppard and stuff like that. Def Leppard had Love Bites, which was enormous, but that was 2 years after Theater of Pain and Home Sweet Home. And, Home Sweet Home was the blueprint for it. It was that first thing, and not only because of the song itself, but just the video. Because you've got these guys singing this song live on stage, and there's like hot chicks going bonkers in the audience, like, oh my God, I love him. The image of Vince Neil reaching out and the girl reaching out, like reaching out to him, like, oh, you're so sexy, I feel what you're singing. Like, you're dead on with that. This started that whole thing. And I
think any of those women got some weird view. Well, yes, obviously, but like some weird view of the future where they were like reaching out to Vince Neil then, and then like suddenly an image of Vince Neil now is suddenly reaching out to them. Like,
those people are probably telling their kids like, yeah, I banged that guy. And so their kids are Googling Vince Neil. The first thing that comes up is like, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, Vince Neil. And they're like, good God, Mom. Like, what the hell? Have some.
Wow.
Yeah. Like instead of like skinny, hot, like sex symbol Vince Neil from like the mid 80s. They're like, geez, Ma, good God, what the hell were you doing? What kind of drugs were you on?
Hey, we were all attractive once, right? Like, I mean, it is what it is.
How many kids you got, Dan?
4. So I got 4. I got 4 confirmed, right? So
confirmed.
Yeah.
You owe me for that setup, sir.
Right. Well, for sure. They're all upstairs right now, like being very quiet. I appreciate them so much.
See, I question whether or not this is the song that did it. I think everyone has to point to that one song and say, this is when I had to deal with good song, slow, boring shit. I think everyone points to this one. But I think Dream On is more to blame than this. Because Dream On was not initially a hit, but it became a hit later on. So did this just mesh with that in style and form? And we're going to play kind of slower, but we're going to keep the rock, keep the distortion, keep the heavy. And it's going to be something beautiful. Because anyone that says Beth is a power ballad, it's not. It's just a song. It's a good song, but it's just a song.
Yeah.
But I think Dream On helped a little bit.
I'm going to disagree with you, because if you're gonna bring up Dream On, then I'm gonna bring up Stairway to Heaven, because that had that slow vibe, and it was that
the classic. It's a like a brain chemical release thing. I'm not smart enough to talk about what brain chemicals they are, but the idea of a band that is
here you go, Dan. Here. Does this help?
Maybe
you want to just take that from me.
Maybe it's a serotonin boost. Yeah, like I'm going the wrong way. My camera's inverted. But anyway, this will be funnier once I figure it out. But no, I think it's the serotonin boost. I think I don't know what it is. It's the feel good, no pun intended, chemical in your brain.
Oh, is it time for that one yet? No, we still got to talk about girls.
No, unfortunately not. We're not at Dr. Feelgood yet. But like, I think that like, the idea of a band that's known for being hard rockers, playing stuff that young men like, for lack of a better term, for like the hardcore, like young men in the crowd are gonna like these hard banging songs or whatever, and then Led Zeppelin goes into that doon 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 doon. They get very like pretty and melodic, and Robert Plant's like it's for the first time they start noticing like just how tight his pants are and like his long locks and he's a beautiful man, you know, like that sort of thing. And then but Stairway to Heaven gets like straight up banging towards the end, like heavy, you know, like heavy Led Zeppelin again. And even I like that. Even with like modern bands that are just like heavy all the time, when they start off like really slow like that and then kind of build into intensity until they reach their like more normally expected level of heaviness, which is what Led Zeppelin did on Stairway to Heaven. I think that Mötley Crüe was kind of privy to that and realizing that like, yeah, this is what we need to do, you know, as far as like start slow and then come out strong, you know, with the rocking guitars.
Yeah.
And I also think that to a certain extent too, that they were so successful on Shout at the Devil that maybe they had kind of misjudged their audience a little bit, because I feel like some of the tricks, some of the marketing tricks and stuff were a little bit more obvious on Theater Pain, and then whenever you move into Girls, they obviously haven't figured out, like they haven't entirely like they think that people are still like easy to trick.
Yeah.
You know, and people have moved on, because like every time you're a band as popular as Mötley Crüe, there have been 12 other bands that have put out a record better than the one that you put out that was your most popular one.
Yeah.
They figured it out. You know, they've either taken the sound into a new direction, or they have like done what you did better. You know, and I think that like, you know, maybe those bands weren't as popular as Mötley Crüe, but like by the time we move into Girls, you have a band that everybody's so used to them doing kind of the same old little tricks that they almost become a little bit of a parody of themselves.
Yeah. 1987.
Yep. I'm a huge fan of this record. I've died on this hill many times with other friends of mine that, you know, are Mötley Crüe fans, and they say this is the crappiest of the good Mötley Crüe records, and I completely disagree. For me personally, this one is, you know, just under Shout at the Devil. You know, and I think, you know, to your point, Dan, like, you know, I don't think they really did anything with the sound. I think what Mötley Crüe did which was kind of interesting, was they just morphed their image.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you just lumped like especially the first 4 records into a pile and just put it on random, okay, same thing. But the image for each one is completely different. And you know, they did that, and you know, it's interesting, you know, because I was arguing with a friend of mine the other day about Girls, and we're talking about songwriting, and he made the point that, you know, Nikki Sixx he's got this reputation as this great songwriter. But when you look at other bands in the 80s that were around at the same time as Mötley Crüe as songwriters actually weren't really that good. You know, if you look at bands like Y&T and Dokken and Warrant, you know, the actual songwriting is much better. And so when I was asking him about it, because he's a little older, my buddy Chris Aiken, he was telling me, he says, you know, the songs weren't as good, but having lived through that time, Mötley Crüe was the band we'd listen to get laid. Like the other bands,
sure,
like you're listening because you like the music and it's great, and you like Mötley Crüe and all that stuff because the music's fun. But like Mötley Crüe, you're trying to bang a chick, and chicks are trying to bang you. That's what Mötley Crüe is for. And so, you know, to your point about, you know, updating the sound, or, you know, we just talked about, you know, updating the image, you know, then they come out and just flat out write a song like Girls, and frickin' title the album Girls. It's like, we're just all about chicks, man. It's like, and it's, you know, it's the most gratuitous example of what they're about that you could possibly have.
It absolutely works. I know for me, this is the first time I knew I was listening to Mötley Crüe, because when I think Mötley Crüe, I think Wild Side. That is the songwriting with the classic metal sounding heaviness.
Yep.
Tommy Lee's grooves, Vince Neil's vocals. To me, this is what the band is after they got through their developmental period. Now they're just leaning into it, and I think that's fine. I do think you're right. It's another record of how many good songs do we have to write that we can play in our set and we can just keep being Mötley Crüe.
Yeah.
And that's fine because it's 87. They're following that formula.
Yep.
It seems so lame now. In 2021, it seems lame. Girls, Kickstart My Heart, Slice of Your Pie. I mean, it's one of those, like, it's one of those things where, I've kind of hinted at that I feel like their lyrics are mostly trash. And this is kind of like the textbook example of that, where it's like, but again, I am judging it from 2020 years versus, the year it came out. And I think that like back in the 80s, this was cool. It wasn't going to be cool for much longer, but they got in, kind of at the point where it was more or less okay. And it was what you would expect kind of from a band like this. And I think that's what bugs me about it, is that it's just generic Mötley Crüe. Instead of like subverting my expectations, there we go. There's a Star Wars reference for you. Instead of subverting my expectations, they went ahead and just leaned so heavily into the image that they already established that I think even at this point I was starting to kind of reach exhaustion, where I was like, they need to do something different now.
I can see where you'd feel that way. I personally I love this record. This one felt much more like Shout at the Devil to me. It kind of got back to that. It sounded a little more dangerous. It sounded a little more heavy. And the songs that people consider, the filler stuff, it's much different than Theater of Pain, because the filler stuff on Theater of Pain is really filler. To me, I actually like all of this record. 5 Years Dead has a cool groove. Nona's stupid, but he was all drugged out. He lost his grandmother and just wrote this dumb piece of music. It's like, whatever, man. Like, Dancing on Glass, people make fun of because it's like, oh yeah, you're on drugs, And he writes all this stuff about, how he died, like Valentine's Day, whatever, found me dead in the trash and all this kind of stuff. But, the songs are better, I think, than they were on Theater of Pain, which has always been interesting to me because he's way more fucked up on drugs on this one than he even was on Theater of Pain. I mean, he was a goddamn disaster. And he even flat out said that, he thought the band was going to be over. If it wasn't for Wild Side and Girls, 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 the band was over. There's no way it was going to continue. But he had enough in him to write, 2 hit songs like that. But I think this record is solid. I mean, they had to throw in a live. You mentioned the cover songs. Not only was it a cover song, but they were too lazy to even do it in the studio. They just recorded a live one.
Yeah,
it was. I mean, and
just throw it on the record. We don't feel like recording it in studio.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know about you guys, but that song always makes me laugh because you want to talk about cocaine in the '80s. This song is the thing. Like one for the party and the county jail. Let's rock. The jailhouse rock. The jailhouse rock. The jailhouse rock. The tempo is just holy
Welcome to Nerfherder aerobics, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. But I mean, am I wrong? Like it's like it's like thrash metal in that chorus. Like, holy shit, Tommy, like there's a tempo thing here. Do you have a metronome back there?
I'll say crazy. Tommy can fucking play.
Oh, yeah.
I have heard so much naysaying over the years. Do I think he's the greatest drummer ever? Absolutely not. Chad Kent, thank you very much. But Tommy can lay down a groove.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And every time I see him either do a solo live or even when he's done some solo appearances, he's always playing techno or rave or industrial, something to augment the beat. So he's clearly into rhythmic music. Dude knows how to keep a beat. So give him the credit, damn it.
Oh, dude, he's amazing. And I think, if you like him in his simplest form, Sammy Hagar's got that show, that Road Trip, Rock and Roll Road Trip. And one of his guests on one of the early seasons was Tommy Lee. And Sammy and Michael Anthony go down into Tommy's studio and they do Rock Candy. And Tommy just that simple, just that, and you can hear just everything his hits are so powerful, and the pocket is so tight, and the backbeat is so strong. It's like, you can't accuse Mick Mars of being a great guitar player. He's solid enough. Vince Neil, obviously, as a live vocalist, is whatever. Nikki Sixx will never be confused with Les Claypool. But Tommy Lee, you can actually look at him as the one guy in the band that legitimately is an actual like solid, very good musician. He's the one that can bring some musicianship to it. And, like we talked about with Too Fast for Love, stuff like Wild Side, it's a pretty simple riff, which is cool. But Tommy Lee with the, that backbeat with the double time on the hi-hat stuff is like, it really drives what they do.
I agree. And I want to make a small correction earlier when I was making fun of song titles. The song titles that I was making fun of, like Slice of Your Pie and Kickstart My Heart, were on Dr. Feelgood, but I just,
I didn't want to correct you.
I got ahead of myself. But
I figured we'd get to Dr. Feelgood in a minute, so I figured I'd just let it go.
Yeah, I'm gonna equally still trash on those song titles, even when we get there. But just
I think it's
just
time.
for all the nerds in the audience that are like, hey, you were talking about girls, and you said that this song, yeah. So I poo-pooed on that. So just
Nice.
I just want to get out in front of it.
1989, Dr. Feelgood.
I mean, somebody needs to correct that. Look, somebody needs to fix that shower, replace some of the tiles on that shower
Right.
because they're cracking. I bet there's some mold down there at the bottom. It's not a shower I'd want to be in.
I don't know if it's a Mötley Crüe shower. There's tons of hot naked chicks in it, so that might not be too bad.
Yeah, but there's no drugs. I think that's the big thing with Dr.
Supposedly.
Feelgood. Yeah, okay. Well, we can get into
Air
that.
quotes, no drugs.
Well, the official story is that the band had cleaned up significantly between Girls, and Dr. Feelgood. And this is where my criticism kind of the song titles comes from, is that like when you take the drugs out of Mötley Crüe, all that is left is the womanizing. And that's where I was kind of like, oh boy,
Yeah.
Here we go. We got Slice of Your Pie. We got Kickstart My Heart. We got Sticky Sweet. We got, like
She
all
Goes
these
Down.
Kind of just She Goes Down. Yeah.
Dr. Feelgood.
You've got these crappy. Well, I thought Dr. Feelgood was just about Bob Ross. Can we talk about the guitar tone on this record for a second? Bob Ross. No, that's the painter.
I didn't want to bring it up.
I wanted to see how far he'd go with it.
My wife and I watched a lot of Bob Ross. The
I'm
painter.
like, is he really bringing up Bob Ross as Dr.
Yeah.
Feelgood? Like, because
No.
Bob Ross makes you feel good as he paints? Like, I was waiting for that.
I'm having an off night, gentlemen. But
Today we're going to be painting
Bob
a
Rock,
shower scene with some happy little trees in it.
Bob Rock definitely pulled kind of a heavier guitar tone out of this band. He modernized them as much as modernization was relevant in 1989. I feel like in a certain sense he got them ready for the 90s. Because this is one of the harder albums from a more modern standpoint. You listen to this and you're like, okay, yeah, this is pretty rocking. For whatever reason, 80s guitar tones, like heavy 80s guitar tones, sometimes bother me. Not all the time, but like whenever we were doing our Iron Maiden episode, and I was like, man, these songs are so much better live, because the band sounds more like they play like a little bit harder live, and their guitar tones are like more modernized, when they play live. I mean, the song Dr. Feelgood, number one, being such a huge hit anyway. And you have Mötley Crüe, they're supposedly all clean. That's the official story, that they're all off drugs and that this is their first, this is their attempt to keep the band together, their livelihood, kind of intact. And I would say musically, I feel like this is a huge step in the right direction as far as them still sounding like Mötley Crüe, but having kind of those more modern elements. Unfortunately, modern elements are not going to always be kind to the band, which we're going to get into later. But I do think that for this year, I think that this record still sounds more or less timeless. And I think sonically, it sounds really good. But the lyrics and song titles are just trash because you've still got kind of oh my god, musically it's like a huge step forward, and lyrically it's like girls part 2,
Yeah, and I completely agree with you because it does sound great. It does sound, like I said, I hate the word, but timeless. It does sound like that, and I think because it sounds so much better and so much tighter, and the songwriting has just been tightened up so much, it makes the lyrical content stand out that much more. So what you have is this clean, muscular Mötley Crüe in terms of songwriting and sound, but you've still got the stupid lyrics from 1985, and you're just like, ugh. So I think it kind of makes it stand out like a sore thumb. And if you listen to extended versions of the album and you hear the demos and stuff, if you listen to the demo version of the song Dr. Feelgood, those lyrics are just terrible. And so you kind of when you hear that, and then you hear what ended up on the record, you could really hear Bob Rock's influence. So
Not Bob Ross.
yeah, not Bob Ross.
Cool.
For all we know, Bob Ross painted the album cover. Who knew?
Possibly.
Yeah, happy little skull with the long hair.
Got a happy little crack in the in the porcelain here.
In the porcelain, right? But yeah, so it definitely sounds great. And you said like the guitar tone is heavy. It still sounds like Mick Mars, but it's like they took Mick Mars's guitar sound, but like, okay, whoever recorded this before did not EQ this properly. Let's put this in the proper EQ. And now this is what Mick Mars' guitar should sound like. And I think you get into that even more, I think, on the next record, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, I mean, the sound is great, and I think you made an excellent point about without the drugs, all you're left with is the womanizing, and the song titles and all that kind of stuff really is just cheesy, and it's
it's almost self-parody. Like I said, it was cool back in
Yes.
1980 whatever, but by the time you're getting into like the late 80s, early 90s, people are starting to get a little bit like, do you guys like talk about anything else in your songs? Like, like what else you got? Like Iron Maiden's over here giving me like the latest and greatest in literary masterpieces, and you guys are doing this.
I feel like this record is the result of the 1980s that Mötley Crüe helped create in popular music. So they were on every drug possible, and now they're clean. They're working with Bob Rock, who I feel like we have a huge look inside of his process just from the documentary on the Metallica Black album.
Yeah.
I could see Bob Rock in 1988, 1989, listening to Girls, Girls, Girls and says, I want to work with that band because they're 90% and they need to be 99.9.
Totally agree.
So take all those bands that were influenced by this sound, this mentality, this idea that Mötley Crüe, you mentioned it's all about womanizing, Dan. Yep, pretty much. It's Mötley Crüe, dude. So take that band and give them to Bob Rock, who says, have you heard what Bon Jovi's doing? Have you heard Whitesnake? Have you listened to Warrant, guys? You created this. You need to just buy into it. You need to grab a hold of it because the 90s are going to be here very soon, and Nirvana is going to fuck all of this up for everybody. So, Now you have Dr. Feelgood. I think it's a really good record by Mötley Crüe, and if Mötley Crüe is the band that creates the hits, I think this record is right there. It's a bigger sound. It's better songs than what you had on Theater of Pain, but you're still getting the Mötley Crüe experience. I don't think anyone listening to this cares that the band is no longer doing piles and piles of drugs backstage.
Yeah. It is an interesting thing because knowing the behind the scenes of them now, back then we didn't know that. We just knew it was a new Mötley Crüe record, and holy crap, Dr. Feelgood comes out of the you're like, holy shit, like, I mean, that was like a perfect single to put out because it's like, you're like, okay, Mötley Crüe, what do they got? And then they come out and just punch you with the heaviest riff they've ever, put out.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, okay, holy shit. Like, and now everybody wants to hear it. And, you got all this ear candy with the singles that would come, Kickstart My Heart. And, I mean, I'm not a fan of Without You personally, but that was a huge song. Same Old Situation is just, that is a phenomenal song. That is a banger. It's just Same Old Situation is like, when you think of a rock song, that's just a rock song. It is absolutely just a cool, upbeat, just kind of grooving. You're kind of bopping to it, and it's a heavy riff and stuff like that. Like, that's a great song. And then, they had so many singles on this album. And, even you get into, Don't Go Away Mad. Like, we talked earlier about how they created the sound and then, like, people followed them. I think they kind of, did it again with this one because they were the first ones to really get, like, we want that massive, monstrous production. It's not just like this drug-soaked, let's go in and bang out a record in a month type of thing. They were, the first 80s band to really go in there and be like, we're going to take, a year to make an album, and everything's going to be, razor sharp perfect, referencing The Dirt again. They were talking about the fact that, sometimes, there were days that Vince Neil would get a word on tape.
Right.
Singing wise, like Bob Rock's like, no, none of this is good except for this word. And he absolutely beat the shit out of them to make sure that this stuff was like absolutely perfect. And no 80s band had done that. So again, even though they're clean and it wasn't very 80s-ish to kind of do that at the time. They were blazing new trails even with that. They're like, okay, yeah, we're going to take this, drug-soaked, booze-soaked, chick-crazy band and actually make a good, solid record with good production and, interesting arrangements and stuff. They were the first ones to do that. So yet again, they're doing things that bands had not done.
So speaking of things that bands had done, let's go ahead and move into Mötley Crüe's self-titled
1994,
or as I like to call it, Mötley Crüe in Chains. And so I'm gonna. It sounds like I'm trashing this record, but like I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I've never been a huge 80s metal fan. I have been kind of the person that can listen to these bands and listen and understand why people liked it and understand what the appeal is and understand the amount of talent that it did take some of these bands to get to the level that they got to. But like some of the more formative bands that I started listening to growing up were like Nirvana and Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam and stuff like that. So did I know that Mötley Crüe put out a grunge record in 1994? No, I did not. Not before doing this. Not before doing this episode. And I'm not gonna lie, they did not do a bad job of it. You've got Bob Rock back behind the helm of the band, and this is again similar to what they tried to do on Dr. Feelgood. They did a much better job of capturing Mötley Crüe on Dr. Feelgood. But I mean, so the biggest thing obviously with this record is Vince Neil's gone, and you end up with a different vocalist. And I don't know, man. What do we think about John Corabi's vocals on this record?
His vocals on this record are awesome. His vocals on Vince Neil songs live don't fit.
Sure, understandably.
This record's weird for me because I love the production of it. Like, it's dirty, it's heavy. Smoke the Sky is one of the coolest, heaviest things ever.
Oh, yeah.
But this record didn't really grab me. Most of my friends that are into Mötley Crüe like hail this as just a masterpiece. They absolutely love it. And, I think I always have two very strong thoughts about this one. Hooligan's Holiday, poor choice for a first single.
Sure.
It does not stand out on the record, much less as, okay, this is what we're going to put out as a single. I did not agree with that choice at all. And also, I always wonder how this would have been received had it come out in like 91 or 92, because, Dr. Feelgood was 1989. So you have a 5-year gap. So obviously Mötley Crüe at that point, grunge had come. And obviously, no one's waiting for a Mötley Crüe record in '94 because at that point, in utero, Nirvana's already on their third record. So, what if they had put this record out right about the time of Nevermind, in 1991 or even 1992? That it would have sounded like, okay, Mötley Crüe's trying to jump on the grunge train, but they would have still been, enough in people's consciousness, because that tour for Dr. Feelgood went on for a couple years. People still would have been aware of Mötley Crüe, and then if they freshen up the sound with a new vocalist and stuff, I think this record would have been received in a very, very, very different light had it come out 2 or 3 years earlier. I don't know where you guys stand on that, but that has always been my overriding thought about this record, that it was like 2 or 3 years too late.
I will push that challenge back on you, John Drake, and say, what would this record have sounded like, or how would it have been received if they had not done the obvious 90s touch of just take out all the reverb, guys? Reverb was the 80s. We want it to sound direct, and it's not going to sound dry, good. Just dry as hell. Cold chamber, sway, so hypnotic. That's what we're going for in 94. Throw that 80s sound, that big drum room sound on this record. I'm not saying it would have been received well, but it might have been closer to Theater of Pain, and I think it would have been just fine. I just don't think anyone could make that decision in 1994, because clearly they were trying to be trendy and stick with what was popular at the time. Metallica did it too.
Well, at least this record's good. Metallica did it and sucked absolute ass. So,
John, get out of my house.
I think that
Load and Metallica was absolute pure, like, liquid, hot shit, disgusting, putrid garbage from about 94 until they put out Death Magnetic. So don't even get me. You want to have me on again, we'll debate that because that's just shit on a stick. But
we've done Metallica to death on this show. But
yeah,
like, I think that I agree that if the record had come out earlier, that there would have been, it may have been more well received.
Yeah, better reception.
The biggest travesty with this record for me is that it comes across to the general fan base as it's 1994. Motley Crue's finally gotten with the times and is now trying to release a grunge album, even though the grunge movement is already starting to go out the door, right? So like in hipster language, when something really cool is happening in society, the second you hear about it on the local news, it's already over, right?
Yeah.
You know, like it doesn't exist anymore. And so then Motley Crue shows up with what I would consider to actually be a very heartfelt and genuine record.
Yeah.
That unfortunately has the same cosmetic sounds as bands like Alice in Chains. And so people are going to hear it and they're going to say, oh, well, they're just trying to do an Alice in Chains thing. But when you really dig into this record and really listen to the songs, and you've got songs about child abuse, you've got songs about like very like real kind of, you've got normal kind of lyrics on a Motley Crue record.
Yeah.
And the whole thing comes across to me as extremely sincere and interesting. But unfortunately, nobody's going to pay attention because nobody that listens to Alice in Chains or Nirvana or Pearl Jam or Smashing Pumpkins is going to buy a Motley Crue record.
Yeah, like
it's just not going to happen. And so I think that like they were kind of in this weird area where it's like, well, we did a really good job on this. We worked really, really hard on it, and now all of a sudden everyone hates it. You know.
Yeah.
And that's hard too because again, you don't have your iconic vocalist, you know, on. And so the entire thing just comes across as outrageously strange. So like the first thing that they had to do really was to get Vince Neil back and kind of go back to their original sound, which unfortunately is not, well, it's just not what they did.
They never ever. Yeah. I mean,
they got Vince Neil back, but
yeah,
maybe they shouldn't have.
But before we get to that, a 2-second thing here, my buddy, I mentioned earlier, you know, Chris Aiken, we talked about this. His favorite record is this Motley Crue record from '94, the self-titled album.
Yeah.
But he's a big Motley Crue guy and he loves this record. He said the tour was shit because he loved the Karabi record, but then, you know, again, he went to see it live and hearing Karabi doing stuff like Home Sweet Home and all the cheesy 80s stuff, like it just did not fit at all. You know, so I think you used an incredible word, Dan, when you said, you know, this record is sincere, and I completely agree with that. It was, you know, they themselves have said, you know, the self-titled record was a result of jamming. They'd never done that. Like Karabi actually played guitar, so when they got together to work on this material, they had a second guitar player in there, you know, with Mick Mars and with Nikki Sixx. Like, hey, what about this? Like, let's, you know, coming up with stuff. It's like, you know, it wasn't just Nikki Sixx banging out some cheesy power chord stuff and throwing some, you know, lyrics about like chicks and drugs over the top. You know, Karabi brought an honest rock and roll type of vibe to it, but it absolutely clashed with their classic material, and I think that's why it didn't work. So, you know, to your point, you know, they had to do there's only one thing they could have done, and that's get you know, Vince Neil back, and now you know, let's be honest here. You know, there's a very appropriate song title on this next record, which is Flush. And basically what they did, they just absolutely flushed their chance at a comeback record down the drain with, I'll turn it over to you, Joe. Go ahead.
Generation Swine, 1997. I mean, if I didn't know what to put on an album cover in 97, I would just take a picture of Primus and say, we're good, guys, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not what this is? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me go back and find another band to take a picture of.
I can sum this record up very simply in a couple seconds with this. I was driving to my gig yesterday with my wife, and she likes all the 80s stuff. You know, she's my age. She's mid 40s, and she's total 80s girl. And her favorite band in the world's Guns N' Roses, so she knows the Motley Crue, the White Snakes. She loves it. So I was like, all right, I told her I was doing this show. I was going to jump on with you guys on Discography Discussion. Go sign up to be a Patreon member. It's only a few bucks a month. And, you know, I said $1 a month, guys. $1 a month. Thank you, Joe. But anyway, I told her, I was like, yeah, I'm doing the show about Motley Crue. So I was listening to some stuff in the car. And I was like, all right, I gotta, you know, we just decided to start listening to random music. And I said, you have to guess this band. And she says, okay. So I brought up Generation Swine. I started going through tracks. She's like, I have no idea why this sucks. What the hell are you playing me? I said, okay, well, let me play some other stuff from this band. And I pulled up Home Sweet Home. She goes, Mötley Crüe. She goes, so who is that other band? And I think everybody did. And even me, when they came out in 97 at the American Music Awards, was it Billboard Music Awards? I think it was American Music Awards, whatever. And they were like, here's Mötley Crüe, and it had leaked that they were going to play Shout at the Devil. You're like, hell yeah. And they go into this techno weird thing. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, Vince Neil's back and this is what you give me? And I think that encapsulates this whole record. Like, you hear Vince Neil's back in Mötley Crüe. It's been, 8 years, 9 years, which is not a ton of time, but it's enough time. And you get this, you're like, oh, come on! So
here's what happens when your lead vocalist comes back into the band and he wants to write a grunge record. I'll say it. This is 97. What was popular in the majority of American rock stations at the time? Europop. Grunge was fighting the battle, but it was on the way out.
Alternative rock.
Alternative rock is the easiest way to say it. So What is Mötley Crüe going to do? Well, we're just going to pretend that last record didn't happen. I think that's what this is. I don't think this is a good album, but
it's a giant piece of shit. It's fucking terrible in every single way. They were writing it when Karabi was still in the band. They were purposely trying to put the Alice in Chains harmonies on it. The songwriting is terrible. The tones are terrible. It is absolutely a piece of fucking steaming hot garbage. It is fucking putrid. This is like Megadeth Risk level crap. This is like Metallica Saint Anger level crap. This is absolutely shit on a stick. This record is so fucking bad. There is nothing on this album that sounds like Mötley Crüe. And they close it with this putrid fucking piano ballad. Brandon, Tommy Lee talking about his son, like, Brandon, I love you. Yeah, we get it. You had a kid. Shut the fuck up and play drums, okay? And if you're going to write a song about your kid, guess what? Write some lyrics that are at least not fucking third grade. I'm going to rhyme. I had a baby. I really like him. Fuck you, Tommy Lee. And fuck this fucking record. This record sucks ass. It is the single worst comeback record of any band ever. Any band that ever lost an original member and did a comeback, this is the fucking worst one ever. And thankfully, a guy in the band agrees with me. Vince Neil hates it as well. He should. It's fucking garbage. Shit on a stick. Let's move on. Go. This fucking record blows.
I got nothing. John,
sorry, guys. Sorry.
No, John said it all. I mean, I don't say this on the show very often. This record just sucks. It's not the band. You know how I said that the last record was sincere and that they were really trying to do a cool thing? This is the exact opposite of that. This is them absolutely trying to cash in on what's popular in the late
trend
90s
jumping.
And do it and so many trend jumps within one record. It just doesn't sound good. Vince Neil sounds like garbage. Everything just sounds terrible. There's almost no guitar presence in the record at all.
Thank you. I was going to mention that. Yep.
Which you think would be like a staple of a Mötley Crüe record, that the guitar would be the central instrument. But no, it's just like, you guys like kind of like that, like softer, like radio stuff, right? Yeah, I kind of like that stuff from people that know what they're doing that make that kind of stuff. But you guys don't know how to make that kind of stuff. So what are you doing?
And even if you're trying to make a grunge record, okay, I get it. If you're trying to do the Alice in Chains thing to be all weird, dude, Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, the guitar is still central to it. Especially Alice in Chains, there's heavy guitar. It sounds fat. You got stuff like, it's a couple years earlier, but, Dirt and the self-titled Alice in Chains record and whatnot. Like, it's like guitar's there. It's big, fat guitar. And this was just shit. Especially when you have Mick Mars, who's known for having a very signature guitar sound. You could use the late 90s production when things finally started sounding bigger and more full. You had it on Dr. Feelgood. You had it on the self-titled record. And then you go into this chintzy, clean trash. Like, everything about this record is just wrong. So
they would have been better off going all straight Korn.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Because like in 1997, that still would have been like originality points.
Yeah.
Like you can get away with copying off of Korn before 2000. You know what I mean? Like it would have been okay. I don't know if the diehards would have loved it, but they would have loved it a lot more than this. At least it would have been heavy. It would have been aggressive. It would have been what you go to when you listen to a heavy metal band. I don't go to a heavy metal concert to be lulled to sleep.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just what this record did. Let's just I'm done talking. Let's just go New Tattoo. Let's go.
I've been listening to this since John said let's move on. 2000. I think this is the album that should have came out in 1997 or 1994.
Exactly. Yeah. This is Motley Crue's Death Magnetic. You know, it's the record, you know, Death Magnetic for Metallica was the record that should have come out after the Black Album. And for Motley Crue, you know, New Tattoo is the one that should have come out, you know, after the self-titled record. And you know, we're now into the period of the Crue where it's not great, but it's good enough to they can go on tour, and if you listen to it, it's like background music, and it still kind of sounds like Motley Crue. I mean, there's nothing memorable about any of the stuff going forward.
But at least it
sounds. Go ahead. Yeah, no, I completely agree with where you're going.
It sounds like the band that put out Dr. Feelgood and Girls, Girls, Girls and Shout at the Devil. And they made a new record, and maybe they'll play a song live, but they're going to play the hits.
Hell on High Heels. Yeah, and you know, Nikki Sixx himself, he said, you know, again, sorry to reference The Dirt, but I absolutely love that book. You know, he specifically said that, you know, after, you know, the self-titled album and Generation Swine, you know, they had that infamous MTV interview where the you know, chicks fire and, you know, drugs and all that stuff. The interviewer had asked him about it. He threw a fit. He realized, like, you know what? People go to Motley Crue concerts to get laid and to hear songs about chicks and fire and, you know, drugs and all that stuff. And so he's like, I'm just going to write a Motley Crue record. And that's what you get with this one. And he finally started getting the point. He's like, yeah, this is what we are. And, you know, much as I might not like that sort of trope or, you know, that reputation, that's what people want from us, and that's what we're good at. And he went back to it. So I give him credit, a lot of credit for doing that. So
I think it's what a lot of classic bands that have kind of come back and are now putting new records out. It's kind of the same thing they do. It's not that they're putting out music that's going to set the world on fire. They're never going to relive the same popularity that they had originally, but they do know that they have a core fan base that are going to buy tickets and go out and see them anytime they play. You know, and I think that's really cool. I think that's the best thing that a band can do, especially a band that was really popular and had kind of this like kind of faux pas couple of records that, you know, maybe might have isolated some people from the band. It's cool that all these years later that Motley Crue can go out on tour and they can still do really, really well and have a great time doing it. And they're older. They're a little bit more professional. They're not destroying hotel rooms and, you know, just being absolutely crazy. And which it's funny because a lot of that stuff we didn't talk about earlier on in the early days, the trashing hotel rooms, how much of that stuff was staged, you know, by the record label too. You know, like arrests were staged and all this stuff.
Yep.
But, you know, at this point, they're just like, we have to put a record out that's going to be similar enough to our older material to where old fans will be excited about it. They will at least buy the new records. And they do a really, really good job on this record of just reestablishing the status quo of, you know, okay, you bought a new Motley Crue record, so it's going to have all the same elements in it that you're used to from a Motley Crue record. We're not going to go chasing some weird, crazy musical passion project we came up with, you know, mid-career. You know, we're gonna double down on that sound, and I think they did a pretty good job. This is not my favorite because to be honest, this is not my favorite kind of music. But I can also understand why Motley Crue fans like it. I don't think they necessarily hit it out of the park on this one though, and I think that they are able to kind of get better at that as they go further.
Yeah, if I can point something out about this record, I think that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. I think Randy Castillo on drums on this one, it's like, you know, Tommy Lee, as we talked about earlier, is such a central, you know, he's the focal point of the songs on most of their stuff. You know, he brings that musicianship. And if you're going to replace Tommy Lee, when Tommy Lee decides he doesn't want to do it anymore, Randy Castillo has such a unique style. He is just such a great player, was such a great player. But he nails that Motley Crue vibe on this one, but he still has that little bit of Randy Castillo in there. I don't think anybody talks about what he did on this album nearly enough. Like I've always liked what he does on this album. It's just awesome. It sounds like vintage Crue. I think for the most part, if you know, the average fan didn't know that Tommy Lee wasn't in the band, they would never know based on hearing this record, but they would hear some things that are a little bit different here and there. Like, ooh, that's some unique stuff that Tommy did. Like, but it ain't Tommy. It's Randy. Like he is an absolute unsung hero on this album to me personally. So,
and if you're gonna fill in for Tommy Lee because that's what the fans think you did, you just got to play the beat.
Yeah,
it works 100%. Yep. I think this is the album you want to listen to besides Generation Snake. I mean, we talked about Mötley Crüe. I think we had better things to say about Mötley Crüe than we did about Generation Snake. So, I'm sorry, Generation Swine.
I was going to say.
I don't know why I have Snake in my head. Maybe it's a Mötley Crüe thing. It's fine, John.
If you're going to bang on, if you're going to bang,
your head,
I was going to say, if we're going to bang on Dan for Bob Ross, we're going to bang on you for Generation Snake.
It's fine. It's fine.
Don't you do that?
You guys were
Don't
so
you,
respectful.
You bastard.
You guys are so respectful. You're like, well, I'm not going to interrupt the man in mid-sentence.
Well, it's because it's not my show. If it was my show, I would have absolutely just like I would still be making that joke, but it's not my show. So
stop, everybody, stop! This guy said something wrong.
All right, so back
Saints
on track.
Of Los Angeles, whatever year it was, 2008.
Yeah, there you go.
The blind guy can't read.
1990 something, you know.
So Mötley Crüe's last full-length record, not good. Musically, cool stuff, whatever. Lyrically, really, really dumb. We're from LA. Here's the whole record how we're from LA. We got arrested. We partied. Like, oh, shut up, man. Just seriously.
California.
Yeah.
I thought musically this was really solid. Yeah.
I completely agree.
Lyrically, I mean, I stopped paying attention to Mötley Crüe lyrics a long time ago, but like, it is definitely very like, hey guys, you remember back in the old days when we used to do all this crazy stuff? I mean, now I'm on like 8 different pain medications. So like when I, when I wake up in the morning, I've got this like little divider that has all the days of the week on it, and I just take whatever pill is in the divider. They leave that part out of the lyrics. It's all about just like remembering the old days. So like it's kind of lame in that regard, but like I think it's still just as good as New Tattoo in that like it still continues that new norm that they established on New Tattoo. And again, all the people listening to this, let's be honest, they're also taking pain pills out of a weekly divider, a day divider, pill box. So like it's fine. I mean, I understand the whole look at this show that we do. This whole show, discography discussion, is you guys remember back when this band was good? Like that's that's kind of the like what we do here. So I can't fault them too much for that. It's definitely not something I'm ever gonna listen to again.
Yeah.
But it was it was fine. I guess that's all I can really say about it is it was fine.
I think the problem with the lyrics on this one is, earlier we talked about Nikki Sixx and like, oh my God, his lyrics actually kind of suck. But you never really realize it until like stuff like this. Like we all went back and listened to these Mötley records and to purposely dig into them. And you kind of go, oh shit, like the lyrics aren't very good. But if you're just randomly listening to Mötley Crüe, you don't really notice. You're just like, yeah, it's Mötley Crüe, cool. Well, I think this one, finally, the lyrics are so bad that they kind of do front and center. So even if you're just listening for fun, you're like, wait, what did he just say? Ugh, what is that? Like, and sometimes you get those records where the lyrics are so abysmal that it kind of takes you focus on them without meaning to. And I think that's what happens with this album. I have 2 overriding thoughts about this record, the lyrics. And I will never be able to picture this album without seeing Tommy Lee's like 87-inch bass drum. Like Tommy Lee's cool, dude. He's cool. I love Tommy. He's a great drummer. And I get you want to do something different, but that giant oversized bass drum, like just stop it. Just fucking stop. Like that's okay. You crossed the line, Tommy.
To be clear, this is the guy who mounted his entire platform to a crane and created one of the best live gimmicks of all time that eventually would be fully realized with his roller coaster drum set on the last tour.
But dude, that's cool, right? I mean, that's cool. But you see, I mean, didn't you see the video for Saints of Los Angeles and see that bass drum and go, what is this clown shit? Like,
yes.
it's like when you saw Wild Side and he's spinning, you're like, oh my God, that's cool. And then, the same old Situation video, he's got the floating thing and then, the roller coaster and all this other stuff. You're like, okay, this is cool. But then you see this dumb giant bass drum. You're like, what the hell is that? It was the first time you did that with Tommy. Like, stop, dude. Okay. So
we're going to go all the way to the left.
Ridiculous.
We're going to go all the way to the right.
Right.
Just ridiculous.
Yeah, this I mean, like I said, like musically, I think this sounds like a Crue record. I think there's some really interesting riffs on this record. It's, I think Mick did some really cool stuff on this. I don't know a lot about it. Like I say, full disclosure, after Dr. Feelgood, like I heard the self-titled record, I was like, because I graduated high school in '94, so I was like, at that point, I was still super, close-minded. I'm only slightly less close-minded now. So, after 90, yeah, it's like, so after that, I was like, and then, when they came back with Vince, like I say, and, Generation Swine, I was like, okay, this is shit. Fuck Mötley Crüe, whatever. So that having been said, like, I don't know a lot about the riff writing process for this record, so I don't know if like Mick had a lot to do with it, if it was still just Nicky, but there was some really interesting guitar stuff. It was a little bit different. They had some cool things going on that I don't think they had done before. And it wasn't very far away from their core sound, but there was a little bit of interesting kind of little nuggets there that weren't there before. So I will say that about, Saints of Los Angeles, so that's pretty cool. But again, it's same thing with New Tattoo. It's kind of like you like it just enough to go see the concert. Like that Mötley Crüe's coming, you're gonna buy a ticket no matter what. And so, they got a new record. You just kind of go listen to it because it's Mötley Crüe, and you're like, all right, I like about 1/10 of this, and it's cool.
Yep.
It's kind of innocuous, I would say. So, it's just kind of there. And again, it's their last full length record, and what else can you say about it?
Final thoughts on Mötley Crüe, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, Mötley Crüe was a band that was really cool back in the day and is trying to be kind of cool now. I was surprised at how good they actually were, that some of their stuff, like all the way up into the 90s, actually caught my attention. But to be perfectly honest, this is a great example of a band that if they had actually listened to their management and made better life choices, I feel like they still could be one of the biggest bands in the world. So I definitely think that maybe their first 4 or 5 albums have quite a bit of value as far as like musical value. Everything else, unfortunately, has just been sort of trying to recapture that in some direction, some way or another. And I think that, like, obviously their later albums their last 2 albums were a little bit more successful in that than whatever they were trying to do in the 90s. But like, I do think every band goes through that. So like, if you're a fan of like 80s metal and 80s hard rock, I think Mötley Crüe is a band you're probably already intimately familiar with. And, you either think they can do no wrong or you're very disappointed when you see the band live these days.
John Drake, what about you?
The first 5 records are phenomenal. I think it's a perfect case study for a band that when they were good, they were so freaking good that they can just ride that train forever. I would bring up Guns N' Roses. When everyone knows Guns N' Roses, they're doing stadiums to this day. But when you think about it, they really only have 3 albums, and you're like, oh my god, really, like 3 albums? And Mötley Crüe, I think, is in that pool. They've got the first 5 records, and it's just like, holy god, is that good? And the rest, you're kind of like,
Yeah.
And the stuff was so good and so memorable that it wipes out things like Generation Swine and the self-titled record, with a different vocalist and stuff. Like, people kind of gloss over that because they think, Shout at the Devil and Theater of Pain and Girls, Girls, Girls and stuff like that. Nikki Sixx is not a great songwriter compared to other stuff, as we have said, but he wrote songs that are so catchy and so unbelievably memorable. I always look at Mötley Crüe kind of like in the same vein as Kiss, because people make fun of Kiss a lot too. Kiss sucks, like they're crappy musicians and they can't write a song, did it? I'm like, yeah, except for the fact that Kiss has more gold records than anybody, and Kiss has so much memorable stuff. And again, to bring up the fact that, the 3 of us actually play instruments and stuff, and we've been in bands, like, to write songs that are this catchy and yet still that simple is so ungodly difficult. You have to tip your hat to anybody that can do that, and Nikki Sixx did it for at least 5 records. And not only did he do it for 5 records, he did it while he was so blasted out of his gourd
right.
on drugs and booze that he killed himself. So there is a certain amount of being, it's impressive, what he has accomplished, what the band has accomplished. And unfortunately, I wouldn't go see the tour now because I know Vince is so ungodly bad. I just don't want to see it. It's kind of like why I won't go see Metallica, because Lars's drumming is just putrid garbage. But the songs and everything, I think Mötley Crüe is a band you can't deny, because even though like their stuff when I dug into it, like it sounds dated. When you look at them now, for some reason they still seem kind of cool. I don't know what it is, but they do seem kind of cool, you know. So I give them a ton of credit, and I will still listen to the first 5 records and be like, fuck yeah, Mötley Crüe.
I think Mötley Crüe set a bar that many tried to imitate because nobody could really grab that bar. Maybe they found something that was missing in the early 80s, or they just took what was there and said, this is how we're going to create the mainstream for the next 9 years. I think they are one of the most fun bands to listen to when what you want to hear is heavy metal from the 80s, or if you want to listen to the band that defined what 80s excess is. Everyone talks about hair metal in the 80s. Some people like it. Some people make fun of it. Everybody talks about heavy metal in the late 70s, early 80s, the groove that totally invaded the mainstream. And then we look back and we say, what were the bands that held that flag? Mötley Crüe is always one of those names. Guns N' Roses is there. Metallica is there for what they did. But Mötley Crüe is that big name. They weren't Def Leppard writing catchy rock songs. They were writing heavy metal songs in the 80s that anyone could listen to. So no matter how trash some of it is, the stuff that is worth listening to is solid gold. So listen to Mötley Crüe. You're going to have a good time. Clearly everyone else in the room is. Dan, what's your album of the week?
Well, I think you knew this one was coming, but I've been listening to Colors 2 by Between the Buried and Me for the past week or so, and I'm not going to give away how I feel about it, because, Patreon is a thing. But, we'll talk about it there. But yeah, Colors 2 is a good record by Between the Buried and Me, and my favorite in a long time that they've put out.
John Drake, what about you?
I'm going to go back to one that came out 2 months ago, and I'm still stuck on it, and call me a honk. Van Halen is my favorite band.
There it is.
Dude, the Wolfgang Van Halen record, Mammoth WVH, that record is just... Dude, that record is...
Hey, we're talking about that on Patreon soon, too.
Oh, get me on.
So many plugs.
I would love to talk about that. I saw Wolfgang played in Cleveland literally 3 weeks ago. He played here in Cleveland, the House of Blues, on Saturday night. And then my wife and I went to Detroit the next day to see Wolfgang open for Guns N' Roses. And so I saw Wolfgang live 2 nights in a row. That record is just, I can't even believe how good I hate it in a way because everyone made fun of me. I was like, Wolfgang Van Halen's got a record coming. Everyone's like, oh, of course John's going to like it. And it's so good. I'm like, God damn it, I do like it that much. And now everyone's going to think I'm just like, because it's got the Van Halen name in it, but no, it's that good. So yeah, I mean, that record is just, ear candy from start to frickin' finish. It's incredible. It is so catchy. It's just good, old school, heavy guitar rock. And the songwriting is just beautiful. It's everything about that record is just awesome. So that's been on my mind and in my ears for, whatever. It's been 2 months since it came out.
For me, it's Motörhead, March or Die.
Wow, Motörhead, old school. All right.
I'm bringing it back. We're going to talk about that band at some point in the podcast. Right, Dan?
Who has enough time for that?
I mean, even though a lot of their stuff sounds the same.
What?
They're heavy AC/DC.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
John Drake, thanks for hanging out with us, man. What is going on with all of the podcasts that you're currently a part of?
Well, thank you guys for having me on. I had an absolute blast with our, Dream Theater episodes, obviously. That was a total blast. And obviously, Joe, you and I keep in touch. Dan, you and I keep in touch. So thank you very much for having me on the show. Like I say, the Nerfherder Council will be live this coming Wednesday at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, YouTube and Facebook and stuff. So if you're into Star Wars, and it's kind of like this. It's just like guys who get together and drink and start bullshitting about Star Wars as opposed to music. So check that out if you're into that. Like, the humor's there, and it's, we're very honest about things. And if you're a fan of Dream Theater, I do have a podcast called Talking Into Infinity, so you can check that out. We are live every other Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So next week is going to be my Star Wars podcast, the Nerfherder Council. The week after that will be my Dream Theater podcast, and the next episode of the Dream Theater podcast is September 9th, and I'm actually having a guest host on. And we will be talking about Score, the 2006 20th anniversary show they did in New York City. And I was there. I road tripped. I'm in their documentary for that record. And it's going to be a really cool episode. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up on that one. Later on this year, we're going to be doing a huge Images and Words deep dive. It's a 2-part episode. We're going to dive deep into Images and Words. We always like to dig into the records, but it's a 2-part episode. It's all in one night. We're going to dig into Images and Words, and then we're going to have Monty Colvin from the Galactic Cowboys on to go through all of his
Nice.
Yeah. So all of the tour stories for Images and Words. So we're going to go into the record, and then Monty's going to come on and tell us what it was like to actually tour with the band and all the crazy stories about all the goofy stuff they did. So that'll be fun. And the Nerfherder Council, we're going to be doing some fan interaction stuff. We're going to be doing some weekend things where everybody can just get drunk. We're going to do movie watch-alongs and just get hammered and say what we want to say. You talked about social media earlier, Dan, when starting the show, and it's a minefield out there. Like you said, there's no ground. There's actually just mines. But
Yeah.
sometimes we just get drunk and watch Star Wars and say whatever the hell we want to say. So we're going to do that
There
with the
you go.
Nerfherder Council. So, a lot of fun stuff coming on. So, Nerfherder Council and, nerfherdercouncil.com or Talking Into Infinity, talkingintoinfinity.com. So if you like Star Wars or Dream Theater, come check it out and hang out, man. And again, thank you guys for having me on, man. It's been a blast. And for all of you guys watching out there, I'm going to do a little plug right now. Make sure you subscribe to Discography Discussion on Patreon. As Joe has said, it only starts at $1 frickin'. So make sure you sign up, but sign up for more than $1 because it's definitely worth it. As they said, they've done over 230 episodes. So make sure you guys spend some money on these guys because they put out phenomenal content constantly. So spend some money on Discography Discussion.
Thank you, John. And I think we need to have you all on the next episode of Movie Mosh. What do you think, Dan? Can we just watch Star Wars with the Nerfherder Council?
Are we still doing Movie Mosh? I guess we are. Yeah, we can.
It's my show. I'll bring it back.
It died somewhere early 2020 where we all got together in a room and watched a movie and recorded our thoughts on it and then gave like a little review at the end. Yeah. I'd be down for something like that for sure.
I'm in.
Especially with technology now, none of us even have to leave our houses. We could just watch the movie privately and tell the listening audience like, all right, hit play now.
Exactly.
Do some like riff tracks type of stuff.
Yep.
Take us out, DFT.
If you guys have ever been listening to this podcast and you would like to be a little bit more involved in what bands we talk about, what topics we talk about, who I interview, that sort of thing, there's a lot of ways you can reach out to us. You can reach out to us on Facebook.com/discography discussion. You can follow us on Twitter at Discuss Metal or on Instagram at Discuss Metal. You can send us an old-fashioned email at danandjoeshow@gmail.com. And if you guys like the classic Discography Discussion logo, I would go to our Teespring store and order one right now because pretty soon you're not going to be able to get it anymore. It's going to be officially retired. So be sure to check that out. There'll be a link in the show notes that'll take you to our Teespring store. Like I said, if you want that old logo, you're gonna have to get it real soon because if not, it's gonna be replaced with the what I have dubbed the Dan's Old Dusty Stereo logo. So definitely make sure to check that out. And guys, we appreciate you. You can always hang out and chat with us and BS with us on our Discord server. There'll be a link in the show notes that'll take you to our Discord server. So until next time, thank you so much for watching or listening or having this tabulated to you via Morse code. We will see you guys next week.
And on that note, this has been episode 237 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Visit DiscussMetal.com for all things discography discussion. And please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/DiscussMetal. We have some sweet perks.
Hey, Joe, can I borrow some money?
$1 a month gets you into that exclusive album review feed.
Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week.
Fucker, I saw that.
And don't forget to worship Stan.
Worship Stan.